Hello and welcome to another edition of Saddlers TV. We're here inside the 1888 Lounge at the Banksy Stadium, and it's the community programme on the agenda for tonight's show. With me, the Community Director Adam Davy and, of course, Club Ambassador Mick Kearns. Lots to get through, lads. I know we're good talkers here on the show. Mick, take us back to 1989. How did the idea come about that this club needed a community programme?
Well, the PFA had set up a programme through Mickey Burns. I'm going back now to the start of it. Mickey Burns was a director of on the Professional Football Association, and he felt that the football clubs throughout the country, to most people within their local community, is just active once a fortnight, every time they play at home. And he felt that football clubs could get far more involved in the community and involve them. And so there was the community programme nationally was set up. There was a pilot scheme in the northwest involving clubs like Rochdale, Bury, Oldham, and then that proved successful. So then it was rolled out then nationally, but it was done in a gradual process. And I think Walsall were invited to join soon after they could see the success of the pilot scheme. And I was asked to become the first community officer at the football club. And Barry Blower, who was the chairman at the time, we had a chat about it. He said he'd like me to consider the post, which I did. And rest history, as they say.
Did you know what you wanted to do once you hung your boots up? Was it always a conscious decision?
That's something. If I'm honest, I wanted to go into management. And I had aspirations at one time of becoming manager at Walsall, but it didn't work out. Probably, thankfully, to a lot of supporters anyway that I didn't. But no, I had aspirations in that field, but I wanted to stay in football. At the time when I retired, I went out. Well, I went out of the game from the point of view of I was the steward at Aldridge Conservative Club, but I continued coaching the goalkeepers even though I'd finished. So I retained my connection with the club. Then I was given a blank canvas, really. I mean, Roy Wally was a terrific support to me when we started off. Complete blank canvas. I was given some advice by the PFA, but really I was allowed to establish the programme as I saw fit with the help of Roy, and I would use him as a sounding board and things like that. And it started off very slowly, but thankfully it has progressed into the success it is today.
Yeah, it comes into my next question, really. It must have looked a very different community programme back then than it does now.
Oh yeah, I mean there was very little money in it, and it was financed really by a government scheme called, in those days, the Manpower Services. But there was very little money came into it, and I can remember taking on an apprentice soon after. And he was a help to me, and then it just gradually progressed, because you could take on too much and it would be a failure. Yeah. You had to just do it very, very gradually, and then it progressed until the time when I took Adam on and another lad called Simon Williams, and we had to do it on a job share. You can remember when you started. And it was peculiar, but then it was allowed to grow. We got great support from the club, particularly Roy Wally, and he deserves a lot of credit for also where it is today.
Adam, if I could bring you in, just give the people at home an overview as to what the community programme does today.
Well, I mean, as Mick said, it's grown gradually, and that's something I've taken on from Mick. I took over from Mick in middle of 2013, wasn't it? So I've had sort of a good couple of years or so in charge now, and really it's a scheme to take the club out into the community and engage in anything we can engage in, really, that serves a purpose in the community but also reflects well on the club. So we're involved in a lot of school delivery. I'll probably throw a few phrases out, but your curriculum time delivery, extracurricular, which is your after school clubs, your lunchtime clubs. Some of my staff do breakfast clubs. We do all the evening sessions, we do soccer school delivery. But the Football League Trust took over the running of the scheme from the PFA a few years ago and really gave us 4 key subjects that we wanted to work along, which was health, sports participation, education and social inclusion. So we try and, all the activities we run, we try and put under one of those four headings.
When you talk about staff, how big an operation is this? How many staff roughly have we got involved in the community programme?
We've got, there's obviously myself as community director, then I've got 2 community managers, a community officer, then we've got 4 assistant community officers and 3 modern apprentices. And everybody gets their sort of roles and delegated responsibilities. And one of the things we've done more recently since I took over is we took on a female football development officer as well.
We were having a conversation the other day in the office just about the reputation that football clubs had perhaps in that sort of middle to late 1980s of perhaps attracting antisocial supporters to the club. How much have community programmes changed all that and the perception that's attached to football clubs now?
I think massively. I mean, it was at a national conference where, it was Gordon Taylor who was instrumental in setting things up, as well as with his role in the PFA, and he said at the national conference, as Mick said, football clubs came in the spotlight once every couple of weeks for a home game, but obviously back in the 80s it came with that element of hooliganism that was a problem at the time. So really the schemes were set up nationally to prove that football clubs can do better work in the community and be more proactive and positive.
Mick, who benefits, in your opinion, most from our community programme? Who are the main beneficiaries of what we do here?
I think the football club itself, the main body of the club, does, because one of the prime reasons why we go out into schools is like like Adam mentioned, the health initiative. If you just look at that in itself, going out and helping schools with PE, their PE programme, and generally doing fitness and impressing on children by taking the players out to schools and saying, how they prepare for matches and how important diet is within their health. That's an example of it. But one of the things you've got to remember is that and I'm sure Adam will agree with me, that every member of staff that goes out is representing Walsall Football Club, and they are such good ambassadors for the football club. It's not just the community programme. They're doing it for themselves, they're doing it for the community programme, but above all, it's for the football club and raising the profile of the football club. Now, as a result of that, if you get children who will come to matches and support the football club, then that's a bonus to it. That's not the reason why we do it, but we're hopeful that we can, impress on children, coming to watch the football club.
I think, sorry, Dale, I was just going to say what was important there, what Mick said was, from his time, I joined the scheme in '94, and so I've sort of grown up with Mick, following the example he set, and he always impresses, well, he used to on us, and I've continued that, on how important it is for the staff to conduct themselves properly. The scheme itself is a registered charity that runs sort of on behalf of the club, with self-financing. But we're considered an integral part of the club here. We're really fortunate to have such a good relationship that Mick built up, and hopefully I've managed to continue. And we always impress on the staff how important it is as role models. They go out because they don't look at us as the scheme, they look at us as the football club. Yeah. So it's important that the staff understand that. I've got a terrific group of staff that really do understand that and carry out the job really well.
Yeah. And outside agencies that we work with within the town, we can help so much what they're trying to do and support what they're trying to do, and in some cases raise the profile of what associations and clubs and groups want to do within the borough of Walsall. And we've always put ourselves in a position to get involved and to help and support them.
Yeah. Very briefly as well, it stood the test of time. You look back to 1989, there's been various different regimes, managerial positions as well here, but that community programme has grown regardless of who's in charge of it.
Yeah, and I'm sure Adam will agree that the support we've had from managers has been terrific. We try and get the players involved, and every single school, if we just look at the schools programme, we try and we give an opportunity to every school that we're involved with to have a visit from a couple of players who can go out and perhaps, if they don't take part in the PE session, have a question and answer where they can find out more about what life is like as a professional footballer.
It's crucial that, regardless of who's in charge here, you get that support.
Get great support, and none more so than the present manager, Dean Smith, who will actively encourage his players to do it. Now, previous managers haven't always done that, but Dean sees the need for it, and he sees the need for it to help groups outside the club. But he sees it as important to the players.
We'll come on to
appreciate what position they hold.
Yeah, we'll come on to the current squad and the part that Dean plays. We're going to take a short break here on Saddlers TV. Join us in a few moments' time for the second half of the show. Welcome back to Saddlers TV, the community programme on the agenda today. It's the Community Director Adam Davy and Club Ambassador Mick Kearns, who turned 65 today. Mick, a very happy birthday. 65 years old. What are your best memories?
You shook me there. I didn't realise that you,
well,
you would have known
like
that. I mean, your research is very good. Not sure anything else is, but your research.
It's all to do with the internet, Mick. We tell you to get up to date with modern technology, and you still won't have it.
Well, your research is very good. Yes, I am, but I'd forgotten about birthdays a long time ago.
Fantastic memories here, though, both as a player and since.
Oh, absolutely. This is my club. Yeah, very much so, and wonderful times.
Moving on to obviously the community programme. Adam, if you look at the current crop of players, just discussing Mick's role as a sort of, since moving on and handing the reins over to yourself, he's the sort of man that's a go-to between this current crop of players and the community programme. How much of a key role is that when you need players to get out into the community?
Yeah, I mean, Mick always did that when he was the community director anyway. Would be at the training ground, particularly when you were the goalkeeper coach as well. So it was a natural sort of position to have, and Mick continued that with his ambassador's role. And I think what's important, just going back to what we were talking about before, the manager's important, but I get massive support from the board of directors. The scheme itself is managed by a board of trustees. Mick is one of the trustees, but Dan Moll, the club secretary, operates as the chair of that. Stefan's on the board. Sue Lane and some of the directors, and we get loads of support from everybody, and Mick liaising with the players to get them out onto visits is important, but as Mick said, Dean actually came to me to talk to me about getting more players out and being more active in getting the players into schools and groups in the area.
It must be fantastic for you to hear the manager actually approaching you. And
of course. I mean, as Mick said, we've always had great support from any of the managers we've had in that time. But for Dean to come to me, then obviously I think because the PFA still play quite a big role in the scheme. They put a lot of money in at the top level at the Football League Trust to support the work we do, and in return they obviously want those stories of players going out and doing good in their local communities across the whole country. So when Dean came to me and said, we want to get more players out, that was fantastic.
It's interesting that Adam makes that point, and how keen the manager is to support people who want to have visits from the players. And Adam will tell you that we quite often have meetings, not only area meetings but national meetings, and best practices discussed and how things are going on at other clubs. And some of the clubs get no support at all from players, get very little support even from the clubs. We hear it, but this club has been fantastic, and I have to say I have never ever in all my time doing that, the link with players, ever had a problem. And the players are really supportive. You might get one or two, I haven't got to go there today, I wanted to do this, but when they get there and they're working with some special needs children, for example, or something like that, they come to me afterwards, that was fantastic. You get great feedback from the players as well, saying that was brilliant. If there's anything like that you want somebody doing, I want to go. Just
looking back on last week, we was talking about 4 separate community visits by both players, and the manager himself was out there as well. And in a week, it's a pretty good going if you can get that. Yeah,
and the staff support, because what we don't want to do is send the players out and have nobody there to meet them and just make sure they're aware and comfortable of what's going on, because they're only thrown into a situation they weren't prepared for. So we we have a process where we give out the forms, tell them, obviously the venue, the time, dress codes, things like that. It tends to be the club tracksuit. But yeah, last week Neil Etheridge was at a local school that had some sports funding. A couple of the lads went out to Mary Elliott School where we had 107.
Anthony Ford, Jordan Cook.
That's it. They went, and the students they met there, 107 of those came to the game on Saturday.
Fantastic.
The manager himself was at Walsall College to see their facility. We have great links with Walsall College. They've had a new sports hub built, and Dean went to see that and meet the students there, and that's helped build and strengthen the link with them. And the manager himself then went on to a meeting with the mayor. So there was four different visits just in the last week.
And how we try and do that is we try and work it in pairs. And the reason for that is sometimes if there's a presentation required or a visit by players, somebody could get injured in training. So therefore you've still got the one player that's going.
It still goes ahead.
And it still goes ahead. And what I try to do with the players through past experience has been very helpful, is try and put an experienced player with an inexperienced player, so that when they both go out, the experienced player can help and the younger player can learn a little bit from and a little bit of guidance with the senior players. And I think that works quite well, because if you put there's a rota system, and as it comes round, it could be anything, and they do it. But if you put two inexperienced players, and it means that they've got to go and make a speech somewhere, for instance, it can be a little bit daunting and uncomfortable for them, whereas the senior player would probably be, feel much more at ease at doing something like that.
I think a lot of people associate the community programme with players getting out into schools, but it's not just the young people in the local community that benefit from this. I'm thinking back to the walking football scheme that I was fortunate enough to go along with. A fantastic scheme for people as well, and it's everyone who wants to engage with the club, they get the opportunity to through that community programme. Yeah,
it's we're so varied in what we can do. A lot of people say, well, have you got a structured programme of what we do? We've got loads of activities we've done in the past that somebody will approach us and say, can we engage in a particular activity? And you can sort of recall back and go, well, we've done similar work before, let's use that as a guide and go out and work that. And as Mick alluded to right at the very start, it's something where you don't try and grow too quickly. You take things in your stride as they come. What I've managed to do with the staff I've got now is delegate responsibility out for different projects that come our way. And that's where we have got the walking football. I mean, to show you how varied it can go, I was invited to the local prison to look at some inclusion work, working with families of people that are maybe in prison and looking at the children in the area and where we could support them and educate them. And actually the walking football became something out of nowhere that they really latched onto, and we're looking at getting funding now to deliver walking football in one of the local prisons, which is really varied. We never expected that to come about, but it's working with. We have the mini movers and mini kicker stuff from 3 years old. I think one of the walking footballers was 84.
Yeah, he was fantastic as well.
And sometimes we see, we had a recent game, the recent home game against Coventry at the start of the season, where we had the walking footballers, our walking footballers. Dave Boost runs the scheme there. He runs a walking football programme. We played each other at walking football. We had some development games with the young talented players. So we had sort of 8-year-olds up to 80-year-olds all engaging in football on that day, and everybody came to the game afterwards. It was such a fantastic community event, and it just highlights the sort of work we can achieve.
Yeah, and it's fantastic, Mick, when we sit in this press box here, we can look over as part of the School Partners programme and see that community stand. It does bring another atmosphere. It goes up a notch when we have the added.
It was what was brilliant. You talk about that was brilliant. Was the Gillingham game.
Yeah, how the
there was over 1,000 people came on that community initiative. Now in the past we've had those, haven't we? And we've been awful, and
the
therefore,
games are worse.
Absolutely. And then, but on this occasion when we played Gillingham, hopefully it will have inspired one or two people who may have come to the match for the first time and want to become Walsall fans. And it was so good that it was their first occasion that they came.
Well, the game's picked at the start of the season when the fixtures come out, so you could have never have guessed that was that. We pick. The club are fantastic. They support us. We've done it a number of years now, haven't we, Mick? Where we have 2 games a season where we offer ticket deals to as many schools as we can get round to. It's normally around 40 schools. and regularly now we're getting, I think it was just over 1,200 from that on the actual day through community. We put another, I think, 450 through the gate. We did a link up with the academy, got all the academy players there. So the community stand over the other side of the stadium to us now was full of kids and families. And as you say, when we picked the game back in June when the fixtures came out, I don't think we could have scripted.
Top of the table clash, a last gasp.
Yeah, you couldn't predict it.
Yeah.
But as I say, listen, we put these initiatives on, and the community put the thing on, and the club benefit from them. And certainly, if it means that we inspire some younger children who've come to the match for the first time to want to come back again and support them and become regular supporters, then it's a tremendous achievement.
And what's great with it is, I think we've been running 8-9 seasons now, and if you look at the numbers, we've more than filled the stadium. I think we're somewhere near 14,000 people have been to the games. And the ticket deal is an adult and a junior, so 50% of that 13,000 plus that have been to games over the years, it's only recent years, 50% are children, which is really important.
I don't know whether it's a question from me to you, Adam, about whether you've noticed. Certainly I noticed at the beginning when we started off those initiatives that you did notice people who'd come for the first time, and then you saw them in the stand, and then you saw them the following
which is the whole.
And I don't know whether that's
they
to
come
you as well,
and they ask questions. What other things can we get involved in and stuff like that. So it has knock-on effects to the kids attending our activities.
There's lots of, I'm sure we haven't even touched upon. We've run out of time, unfortunately. Thanks, Adam, and
no
thanks,
problem.
Mick. That's all we've got time for on Saddlers TV. Join us next time.